You're listening to the Career Jump Podcast. Insights, interviews, and success stories to inspire and give you the edge when you make your next career jump. Hosted by your career concierge, Andrew McCaskill.
Hello and welcome back to the Executive Career Jump Podcast. I'm your host and career concierge, Andrew McCaskill, and I'm delighted today to be joined by Caroline Foster. So Caroline was very high on the hit list of potential guests for a number of reasons, which we'll get into during the episode. But firstly, thanks so much for giving up some of your precious time, Caroline. And would you mind just introducing yourself to the listeners today, please?
Yes, of course. I was giggling, Andrew, when you were telling the listeners that I'm high on the hit list. I hope the hit list is for all of the good reasons, right? So I'm delighted to be here, and thank you so much. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Caroline Foster. I work in the HR profession, and I work alongside organisations to help elevate and transform the employee experience, and in so doing, to introduce wholesale change through that cradle to grave experience, which is more typically than not governed by HR professionals and line leaders across the domestic and the international markets.
Yeah, exactly. And hence why you were such an important target for me, because what Caroline can offer us is perspective from the inside organisations looking out and hiring. But also, as somebody who's been a successful interim for a number of years, Caroline's been through the peaks and troughs of acquiring her next contract on a regular basis and conquered LinkedIn within about 6 months, which is where you came onto my radar in the first place. So really excited to talk all about this with you. Let's start with the inside out element. So I want you to put your chief people officer hat on that you wear on a daily basis. What's your take from sitting on the side of the hiring equation in terms of what you're seeing in the marketplace and what people need to be thinking about?
Yeah, sure. And Andrew, I'd be delighted to. And I think I'd start by saying that there are so many pitfalls, challenges and emotions involved in the job seeking process. But from that inside out perspective, and look, there's a lot of stuff out there, including from you, Andrew, in what you do and the services that you provide. But here's my perspective. And what I would probably start by saying is to do, as candidates in the open market, do your research in capital letters. Because it is incredible to me how many candidates, and even at senior levels, do not go out of their way to investigate the organisation and to consider things like the products, the services, the locations, and the operating environment. Try doing, as part of your research for those job seekers, try completing something like a SWOT or a pestle analysis as part of your prep. And that may be something that you wish to bring into the interview, or it may be something that you keep out of the interview as part of your own learning in that research phase. But prepare the groundwork, increase your learning of the company, and highlight that in the interview conversations. And ensure that you do these things well to stand out from the crowd. Because in my role as a hiring manager, and there are so many occasions where I interview candidates and very senior candidates who simply do not adequately do their research, and it's a disengager. It's not something that will rapidly captivate the attention and the interest of the hiring manager.
And as much as anything, it's not even not doing the research yourself. It's what it says about you for not doing it, isn't it? It's not even just the information. It's the behaviours that you're demonstrating by turning up having not done it. Is that right?
That's absolutely right, Andrew. And it reminds me, about 7 or 8 years ago, I was interviewing for a sales and marketing director for a FTSE business. And with the base income, the bonus, the LTIP and other exec benefits, the total cash compensation was probably hovering in the region of around 450, 500,000. And there was a candidate, and I was doing first screening interviews discreetly in a a rather nice hotel in the UK. And there was one candidate who I'll never forget. He walked in, we kind of meted and greeted, shook hands. He sat down at the desk, and the only thing that he brought out with him to put on the desk were his car keys. There was no laptop, there was no tablet, there was no notebook, there was no pen. And the first thing that struck me was, how will you remember the preparations that you've made for this role? And what are you going to use to make some crib notes and things? And that really stayed with me. And consequently, it wasn't just those few moments. For this level role and this type of role in sales and marketing, he had done some very good research, but it simply wasn't enough. And it definitely wasn't sufficiently standout to warrant him being considered for that level role.
No, quite right. And I think part of the problem, and I talk a lot to my clients about this, is that some of the senior leaders see the HR screening part of the executive hiring process as just, oh yeah, I've got to jump through a couple of HR hoops and then I'll get to go and speak to the MD or the CEO. And so they don't give that first screen, whether it's with a headhunter, a talent acquisition director, or a HR director, the respect and the engagement that it deserves.
It's a big mistake. I mean, I agree entirely, Andrew, and it's a big mistake because, you know, the analogy that comes to my mind hearing you say this is like trying to organise a marriage ceremony and forgetting the ring. Because at that first critical screening stage, if candidates don't nail that process and nail it so well, why even should anybody consider them getting through to further stages?
No, exactly right. Exactly right. So what else sat on that side of the fence? Do you see people doing well or maybe not doing not so well at all?
Yeah, so I've got a handful of other top tips. So to follow on from do your research well, the second is to think like a CEO. And what I mean by this is to be certain to rigorously explore as a candidate the value that you bring, how you can improve that company's operating efficiencies, its customer ratings and ratios, its cost management. How will you as a candidate resolve existing problems? And that loops back to the research to understand before the interview some of the conundrums that the organisation are facing, and as a candidate, how you can resolve those. And to be clear, in thinking like a CEO, what makes you as a candidate stand out as an attractive and compelling proposition? How will you as a candidate deliver market share in listed companies and help build the revenue and profit lines in all others? And those expectations, of course, we know, Andrew, elevate the more senior the role is and the more senior one resides in the hierarchy. And actually, this is a mistake that I would suggest a very high proportion of senior HR professionals make. They don't, for a variety of reasons, link the human capital advantage into the bottom line and the EBITDA of the organisation. And I often wonder about that, given that the greatest cost in any organisation, no matter what, its size, its scale, its infrastructure, is always the cost of labour. It's the cost of people.
Yeah. So my friend Dylan Roberts, who's one of our clients who works now in his own company advising startups, he talks about ROIP, which is return on investment of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to think of it in that way, because as you say, when you put it in those words, it's like this is probably your largest expense for any non-manufacturing organization, and even some manufacturing organizations. It's probably your largest cost of sale. And so to not approach it strategically and to think of it in a return way is crazy, isn't it? It's absolutely crazy.
Yeah, it's madness, and it's a puzzle that I can never quite get my head around. And actually, this way of thinking is particularly relevant in startups with venture capitalists, business angels, and private equity houses. So that ROIP, or the human capital advantage, as I refer it to, is business critical, because the higher performing and the more compelling and the more skillful and talented candidates are and can demonstrate, the greater the value that they will bring into organizational environments.
Super important point there. All about relevance, alignment. Yeah, love it. What else have we got on this hit list of yours? I'm enjoying this.
So I've got in standout letters, elevator pitch. And Andrew, you're more competent and more masterful in this area than I am, without a doubt. But what I mean by an elevator pitch is this. As a candidate, become deeply familiar with your resume and illustrate in the interview discussion clear and focused thinking around your career history, your resume, your strategic innovations, and the financial value that you've done and delivered. Far too many candidates get lost in the monologue of spending an hour talking about a career history and repeating what's written in the resume. Don't get lost in the waffle, the minutiae, and diatribe, because if candidates do that, it's too easy for hiring panels to quickly disengage and switch off. And of course, you and I, Andrew, are mindful of the halo and horn effect. And candidates need to be really advocating the halo effectiveness of alignment and synergies. And part of that is about getting the elevator pitch right. Answer questions with clarity, purpose, and focus, and don't overshare or overtalk. Provide clear examples to back up experiences, and listen hard to the hiring panel and listen well. And that's about what it also does for me, Andrew. And this, again, I see more in senior hiring, is that for those who have a very skillful elevator pitch, and I'm not talking here about concentration and memory recall from the resume right. What I'm talking about are candidates who demonstrate focused, clear, systemic thinking, and that who think and have a brain that can create connectedness and join the dots together. So my brain, and I know everybody's brain is different, but my brain always, in most circumstances, thinks like a jigsaw. And the power of that elevator pitch is exhibiting a way of thinking that can demonstrate that focus, that systems thinking, that connectedness, the divergent, the convergent, the lateral, and bring it all together in a very powerful and compelling resume about, as a candidate, this is what I've done, this is what I've accomplished, these are my standouts, and this is what I can do in your organization.
Yes, it's the amount of people that fall down at the very, very, very first hurdle is remarkable.
Yes,
so,
yeah.
Some fantastic insights there. I love that. The importance of that storytelling, and the real key takeaway around not just reading what's already in there. People aren't, when people say, run me through your CV, they can read. They're not asking you to read the CV out to them. They're asking you to demonstrate your thinking, your ability to influence, your ability to engage, your ability to tell stories. These are the types of skills. And the whole time they're imagining, could I put this person in front of our difficult FD or in front of that GM of that business unit that needs to break it out? And if you're waffling and you're losing gravitas, they're going, there's no way I can let this person loose. There's no way I can let them get out there.
That's so important. And although this isn't part of my top tips, you've just reminded me in what you've said that job seeking is very often like a dating agency, because that chemical click around culture, around style, around environment, around personalities, and around relationship management, if those things aren't aligned, then a candidate can be technically the most masterful technical or subject matter expert ever, but if those softer and those more organic features don't join up, then that candidate will not receive an offer.
Very, very well said. Really insightful stuff.
So I've got two more things from
Excellent.
the inside out, if I may, Andrew. So the next is show your true colours. And what I mean by this is to try to avoid the trap of becoming what you think the panel are looking for. The greatest successes, almost always in my experience, are those candidates who relax, who are comfortable in their own skin, who have a robust understanding of who they are, what they can do, including their weak spots and areas for development. No one is perfect, and be prepared to talk about these things in the interview dialogue. But if you do that as a candidate, the trick is to do so in an engaging and purposeful way with clear resolutions in place to weak spots or development areas.
That's such an important point. And we see this play out all the time, because you'll have someone who's maybe been on the job market for 12 months. They'll get one job offer, and then they'll get 2, 3, 4 job offers all at the same time. And you go, well, how have they been on the market for a year and now got 4 job offers? And the reason is that once they get the first offer, they actually relax and show their true colors in all the other interviews, because that initial anxiety of getting a job has been taken away. And so, of course, then, ironically, they become more attractive to other hiring leaders.
Yes, exactly.
Because they're empowered to be who they want to be.
Exactly. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And, you know, my final point from the inside out, and I call this above all else. So if there is one piece of advice that I would encourage the listeners, and particularly those listeners who are job seekers, to take on board, it's this: above all else, show passion, energy, pace, and enthusiasm. And what I mean by this is, what I don't mean by this is seeking a personality change, but to demonstrate, even if it's a quiet and considered and thoughtful way, to demonstrate a hunger and excitement for wanting this role in this particular company, and being clear on the reasons why. And why this opportunity is better than anything else that as a candidate you may have in your pipeline. And to also think about why it matters so much. Think about the socioeconomic factors and the business sector and how important these may be to you. You know, so perhaps people who want to work in life sciences or bio or big pharma, or those that want to work in education or in healthcare and the NHS, there are more often than not vocational motivations around paying it forward and making people feel good about working in that particular environment. And if they matter, make sure that you bring those out in the interview dialogue and show how they align to your own values and what matters most to you as a candidate.
Tremendous. Yeah, you've got to be able to articulate that why. And it's got to be real. And I think from my experience, I don't know if you'd agree with this, but I think part of the reason it's so important is because what we're looking for in our hires is resilience. And what gives people resilience when times get difficult is a genuine passion for what they're doing, a purpose for what they're doing. That's what drags us through. So while we're looking for that at the hiring stages, because we know it's not going to be a bed of roses, but the people who want it will be the ones that will come with us on the journey and push through. Yeah.
I mean, absolutely right. And I think, you know, what you're saying, Andrew, links in really well to now look at the outside in perspective and that grit and inner resilience that is fundamental to success.
It is. So a lovely segue from you there.
Hey, everybody, it's Andrew here. Just wanted to very briefly interrupt this podcast episode to tell you a little bit more about our Career Jump Club. So our Career Jump Club was created to help job seekers understand what they want and how to get it, right? So becoming a club member is a great move if you're looking to get the clarity and confidence in order to secure your next role. With the membership, you get a number of different things. So first thing you get is access to our online platform, which has over 30 videos, 40, 50 different templates, workbooks, and it takes you through everything from sort of understanding what you want to how to position your CV and LinkedIn, how to interview, how to close offers and negotiate better salaries, a full end-to-end job search course effectively for senior leaders. So you get that, you get a fortnightly group coaching call, which is with me and with the other members, where we bounce around best practice, share slide decks, share techniques, and share the latest data on what's working for people. And you get to, most importantly, become part of our closed LinkedIn group and our closed community. And in there is where the magic often happens, because you get people referring each other into opportunity, supporting each other, and just sharing. And that's what it's all about. So if you're financially able and you'd like to invest in your job search, head on over to www.execcareerjump.com, all one word, /club, and you'll find the landing page and come and give it a go. We'll see you in there. Anyway, back to the pod.
Let's do that. Let's switch gears and go into candidate mode. So as I said at the start of the episode, you've obviously been an interim for a number of years. You took that career choice. And so you've had a lot of experience of sourcing work, interviewing, and everything that comes with it. So what are your top tips for our listeners, many of which are in transition themselves?
Yes, of course. And, I'd start, Andrew, by acknowledging that job seeking is an emotional roller coaster where the odds are always stacked against us, always. I have been known for being rather outspoken and very transparent in this space on LinkedIn. And I've used, the gut-wrenching experience and process. And it's recognised as a traumatic time in people's lives. And it's a very difficult place to be in, and a challenging and complex process to manoeuvre through. So I think what this means is that we simply have to be mentally prepared. And as you described a moment ago, that resilience and that inner grit, to be in a headspace that can tolerate and cope with very frequent rejections and disappointment. And I think these characteristics in our personality are the things that are required above absolutely everything else as a job seeker. All of the other advice from where I'm sitting around the technicalities of powerful resumes, around getting through Broadbean and ATS and networking and all the things that we have to do as candidates, if we don't have that inner grit, if we don't do things to work on ourselves, to tolerate very high ratios of disappointment, then there is an increasing risk that it can push us under, where it can become increasingly difficult to jump out of bed in the morning with a sense of purpose and energy.
100%. The bit we have a saying in our community that it's the biggest battle is the one between the ears. For all of the tips and tricks in the world, it's very much that, and it is brutal. The last 12 months, Caroline, as we've seen, and you and I have tried to do what we can to prop up as many people as we can, as have many others online, and that community element has been excellent, but it's been really, really tough, hasn't it? It
has, and I think because as a person, because I cycle more frequently than the average candidate who would seek a very long-term commitment, my heart is always with job seekers, always. This is not manufactured, it's in my DNA, because I recognise just how tough it is to be in that space, and every day is a challenge, and there's a lot of support and a lot of resources that we need to build around us and find allies, people like you, Andrew, and the large community that you have on LinkedIn, and using different social media platforms to truly engage and to build up those resources and those support mechanisms with like-minded people who can check and challenge and share and peer support and mentor and coach, and just have a coffee and a whinge and do all of those things which is so necessary to surviving and thriving through the job seeking process.
Tremendous guidance there. Very, very good. You don't want to be trying to tackle this alone. And when you do get brave enough to ask for help and open up, you'll be amazed at the positive response you'll get. Mm-hmm. So what other tips have we got on the on the job seeker side, Caroline?
Yes, of course. So I've mentioned some of them around networking, building resources, finding like-minded people. Other things would include approaching organisations direct, to really think through carefully your job search plan and build a plan and build a strategy around that, whether that's in one's head or whether that's documented in a Excel or in a Word document or something else, because that helps to bring a sense of focus and purpose. But in having a plan, I would encourage job seekers to not stick to the plan, because it's a series of constant moving parts. And one of the things that we have to pay attention to as job seekers is to flex and adapt our search plan in accordance with the market, the situation, the sector, the economy, the opportunities, etc., etc. And some famous philosopher had said that the very essence of madness is doing the same thing over and over again. And as job seekers, we must avoid that space. So having a plan is very important, but building agility and flexibility around that search plan is really important to do. And there's a lot of top tips and help and advocacy and loads of things out there. And as job seekers, I would encourage everybody to go out of one's way to learn and to acquire know-how and build understanding of manoeuvring through the complexities of the job hiring process. And some of that will include the things that we're talking about right now.
Yeah, well, we're publishing a book soon called The Job Search Playbook, which is very much going to be about operating your job search as a plan. So delighted that you gave me the opportunity to plug that without even knowing it. But the important part about it, all joking aside, is if you reframe it almost like a business challenge, that also tends to help with the mental side of it. Because if you use your own business skills on the problem rather than feeling like it's all so personal,
yes,
even though of course it's personal, but if you can kind of take some of the stress and emotion out of it, use your business skills, plan your time, plan your routes to market, document your activity. Some of our guys and girls have a scorecard. They KPI themselves on certain activities and things, so that they're still in that kind of mode. It's really healthy and it's helpful.
I agree. And I think the sweet spot is about finding a way of going about doing these things that works for you best. So my closest friend said to me a long time ago to think like a chess player. And her words have often been incredibly helpful for me to go back to, both when I'm on assignment and working in organisations and when I'm job seeking, because being able to do that enables us to think in very different ways, to think laterally, to think strategically, to think logically, to think divergently, to think convergently, and to plot out a plan that has real depth and breadth to it, which statistically, without any doubt, will increase the ratios of success and landing that role.
Well, I'll be stealing that one with pride. Absolutely brilliant quote. Think like a chess player. There you go. I've never heard that before. I love that. Excellent. Let's talk LinkedIn. I mentioned at the start of the episode, that's obviously where I first came across you and really loved the compassion that was in your content. And you were pretty quickly getting some pretty big reach, right? You built a following whilst you're on the market so quickly. So tell us a bit about your experiences, the platform, why you started using it, and just your views on LinkedIn in general.
Yes, of course, I'd be delighted to. And it's been a very interesting and enriching personal experience, because when my last assignment finished in 2019, I knew that I would be starting my own job search in January last year. And I didn't have kind of a grand plan that was written down or a strategy or anything else, but I had done quite a lot of thinking and preparing my own groundwork for how I wanted to tackle things. And one of the things that I'd recognised, that I had been a member of the LinkedIn platform for around 10 or 11 years prior to last year. And during that lengthy period of time, I'd acquired around 2,000 connections, which told me that I wasn't really engaging or using the platform really at all. I also acknowledge that LinkedIn remains the number one global job seeking platform for professionals. I mean, you'll know the stats better than I do, Andrew, but I think it's around 600 million upwards of people who are active on that platform every single day. And I knew that there was an opportunity for me as a job seeker to try and utilize that as one of the levers that to generate success. And I have to say that through my experimentation of LinkedIn, and by writing the posts on topics that I feel very passionate about, I had absolutely no idea how it would explode. And I think looking back now with the benefit of hindsight, it seems very certain that my particular writing style has appealed to many people. And I tend to have a habit sometimes, Andrew, of writing how I speak. And it seems on this particular occasion, in that particular job climate in 2020, that the warmth and the transparency and the courage that I illustrate has made me stand out from the crowd and therefore connected me to a lot of people. And I think looking back, what I've done is to bring in a lot of the emotions that I feel every day of my life into my writing of posts. And for me, it wasn't a manufactured plan. 99.9% of the posts that I write are highly spontaneous. I have a thought, right, this is something I feel really strongly about, and I start writing from my iPhone, and that's how I roll. Other people and other candidates may need to adopt very different and very opposite techniques to what I do, but the techniques that I used were highly genuine and authentic, and it triggered an incredible reaction, and particularly so during the first 6 months of last year.
Yeah, it was tremendous to watch. And that write as you speak is a brilliant tip to anybody. I think a big mistake a lot of leaders make is they write as if it's a corporate communication. Yeah. And it's too vanilla. It feels too high level. Writing as you speak just connects and is relatable in a way. And I have to say, I followed your lead in starting to use more emojis as well, because you were you were throwing the emojis in early before I was, and I thought, I really like that, because again, it just brings a bit of personality, and it was easy to relate to. So yeah, I've gone from never using emojis to throwing in the occasional emoji now, and I'd like to, you and a couple of others were the catalyst for me on that.
Oh, thank you, Andrew, and it's been great to see you using them, because I don't throw in a few emojis, I throw in tons of them, because the pictures and the images help to describe my passions, and I think writing in the moment, and not everybody can do this, but writing in the moment illustrates an of authenticity that can't be manufactured, and that the readers of the post can see and feel through the words and the writing.
100% brings it to life. So yeah, I definitely learned that from your posts and have been experimenting. So thank you for being brave enough to start using them and to make it something that, loads of people are using them now. But when you started, not many people were using emojis to the same extent. So
no, sure. The other thing that I personally don't tend to like writing about, and again, I acknowledge and I would encourage every job seeker to find their own niche and to write and talk about things that are passionate to them. In terms of my own thinking style and writing style on LinkedIn, you've noticed, Andrew, that I personally avoid writing posts about general trivia. And I don't tend to bring in humour either, although out of work, I love making people laugh, and I love all the feel-good things that comes with, telling jokes and being part of that. But I avoid those things on LinkedIn, because I prefer to address more serious and thoughtful topics. But as I reiterate, each one of us has our own preferred way of doing things. And I guess that's the message that I would say to the audience is know what they are, find out, acknowledge about what matters more to you, find your niche, and just start writing.
100%. Yeah, I personally, I'm not really into the clowning around bit either. It's just not my style. I know some people have built very big followings to it, but it's not my style at all. For me, I'm in that authentically professional mode when I'm in there, but trying to be very open and human with it. And that's it. And that really comes across. Again, that's another reason why people are resonating, because they're going to that platform and they're receiving that in the right way. Anything else on the list for our job seekers?
I would say that I describe it as having altruistic drive. So I know as a human being that my altruistic motivations are very high. And I demonstrate this in all aspects of my life and work. And it matters to me a lot as a professional and as a human being that I help others. And I've demonstrated that repeatedly and still demonstrate it through my engagement on LinkedIn with a more selfless attitude to others. And I think where we can stand out as a job seeker is to not fall into the trap of becoming too self-absorbed and too focused on our own stuff and the pressures and the ticking time bomb that's required around, finances running out and having to land work. But to, the more modern term I hear is called pay it forward. I describe it as high altruistic drive, but show, not in a disingenuine way, but show in a really genuine and authentic way that what you care about, and reach out and offer advocacy and support to job seekers around you and help others in those job seeking communities, and do that. So think of others in parallel to thinking about yourself.
That really helps with the mental side of it as well. The more that we serve others when we're not necessarily in the best place ourselves, the more it helps. And somebody said to me a long time ago, the more, and it's been my own experience, I wish I'd have maybe started executing it earlier in my career, but somebody said to me, the more you help people get what they want, the more you'll get what you want anyway. The selflessness of it, the more you pay it forward, the more that you're going to end up moving closer to what you should be doing in any case. So
I agree. I agree entirely. My husband used to say to me years ago, and I never really quite believed it, what goes around comes around, which is really about karma, isn't it? And the older I've become, the more I now recognise that in being a good person and living a meaningful, purposeful life that brings advantage and opportunities and does good things, to our families, to our relationships, to our friends, to our communities, to our society, to our planet, I think does pay it forward and brings a lot of rich opportunity and professional and personal reward in that whole myriad of job seeking.
100%. And what a tremendous note to finish off. I think you nailed it in that last couple of sentences. And I have to say, it's been one of the most content-rich episodes we've had. So thank you for the thought that you've put into it. Thank you for how generously you've shared with everyone today. Please, if you're not already following Caroline Foster, we'll put a link to her profile in as part of the podcast. Go on and make sure you follow her. You'll find her posts are very insightful. Good luck with the big transformation you've got going on at the moment as well.
Thank you, Andrew.
Just thanks so much again for your generosity. It's been hugely appreciated.
It's an absolute pleasure. And once again, thank you so much for creating this opportunity. Thank you.
I'll catch you soon. Take care.
Okay, thank you.
You've been listening to the Career Jump podcast with Andrew McCaskill. For more resources and information, just head over to the Career Jump website at www.execcareerjump.com to supercharge your job search and start making moves. Let's get to work.